The Chargers officially did not use the franchise tag on Odafe Oweh, and after the latest reports, it seems like he could be headed for greener pastures.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, man? Welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons together. This is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as part of the #1 sports podcast network. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, as much as I hate to say it, it seems like Odafe is going to be the one that got away, and I can't believe that I'm here because I want him to be in lightning bolts. He had such a great year last year, but it seems like that ship may be sailing. One of the things that is not going to be sailing into the sunset is Khalil Mack, who came out and said that he is going to be coming back for the 2026 season. Is that going to be with the Chargers? And also, could the Chargers be taking a couple of Bills offensive linemen? Is it better to keep those guys together? We'll talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, why not just take, 40% of the Bills' offensive line? Obviously, they played extremely well last year to try to fix the problems that you have, especially on the interior. But, David, it starts here with the franchise tag news. We did hear Joe Ortiz last week said he was not planning on using the franchise tag. That was also before we knew what the numbers for Odafe Oweh could potentially be from Daniel Popper and the intel he got from the combine. Some people thinking he could make as much as $25 million. And if I was Odafe Oweh's agent, I'd probably want those numbers out there anyways. Not saying that's where Daniel Popper heard it, but obviously it's hard to tell where all of these things and where all the smoke is coming from at this time of year. But we did get a report from Jeremy Fowler, who after the Chargers did not tag Odafe Oweh, said Chargers edge rusher Odafe Oweh remains poised to hit unrestricted free agency. The team has given no indication that it will use the tag by 4 p.m. deadline. So barring surprise, Oweh will enter the market. And that is the part that's interesting there, David, because there is still time until the legal tampering period begins, which is still over a week away, or, about a week. The Chargers can get him signed before any other team gets a crack at him. But the buy or sell on this buy or sell Wednesday is this. After not getting the franchise tag, Odafe Oweh will be on another team in 2026.
I mean, the franchise tag was going to be less than $25 million. I think it was going to be 24 and some change. So If the Chargers really wanted to make sure and secure his services, if they knew that the numbers were in that $24 to $25 million per season area, then why didn't they just use the franchise tag? But I think, with this situation from Odafe Oweh's perspective, this is a business, all right? And the more teams that are available to bid for my services, the better for me and the better for my family and the amount of money that I am poised to make. Right now, he has only one team that he can negotiate with, and that is the Chargers. And are the Chargers going to be able to put together an attractive enough offer? Money's not the problem. It's, are they willing to go to a high enough number to secure the services of a super freakish athlete to pair on the other side with, Tuli Tuipulotu and potentially a Khalil Mack if they're able to bring him back. But I think the way things are looking here, Daniel, I'm going to sell it. I hate that I have to say it, but it feels like if they were going to get something done,
another team in 2026.
Yeah, I think he's going to be on another team in 2026. So I'm going to buy the fact that he's not going to be back, as much as I hate to say it.
Yeah, and it feels like it's going that way right now. It feels like at this point, and you could say this about any of their internal free agents, that the best price or close to it that they are willing to pay, they have offered. And they have tried to get them on the dotted line for. I mean, T.R. Tart's been signed for several weeks now, right?
Yeah.
He was obviously someone that they prioritized and they got it done, and both sides were willing to, come to the table. With these guys, though, with where their market is, and especially the rapidly expanding market that they seemingly have, why would they not test free agency at this point, right? And I think that is where kind of the hard part happens, because Odafe Oweh was with Chargers for a little over half a season, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like he has his loyalties or he's been here and they drafted him and they're the one that gave him a chance. What they do offer is, hey, we showed you that in our system you can have great success. But when you get that great success, you want to turn that into, like I said, greener pastures, and that could be money. So for this whole time, I've been like, hey, you spent a 5th-round pick for him. We'll see what the compensatory return can be, but you would rather have the guy that you know would probably bring you, 10 to 13 sacks in 2026 as opposed to just getting a pick in 2027. So it will leave a huge hole, especially if they can't bring back Khalil Mack. And there was also some news there, so the buy or sell we'll get into is this from SBY2K. Buy or sell, Khalil Mack will remain with the Chargers this next season. This from Ian Rappaport. Chargers legend Khalil Mack, one of the top edges available, will play in 2026, sources say. At the age of 35, coming off a strong season, Mack is a priority for LA. Instead of retirement, Mack is back exploring all options and will be a big-time target in free agency. But David, even though he's now back, which is great news that he's not retiring, will it be with the Chargers?
Yeah, I'm going to say that it is going to be with the Chargers. I feel like with Khalil Mack, where he's at in his career, we've heard a lot of different things about what he likes about Southern California, what he likes about the Chargers, how he respects and appreciates Jim Harbaugh. He likes the strength and conditioning coach. He really believes in Justin Herbert as the quarterback, and he feels like the Chargers have a situation to where they can win. The thing that Khalil Mack has made abundantly clear over and over and over again is that he wants to win in the playoffs. And yes, the Chargers have got there. They haven't been able to get that win, but I feel like with some of the moves that they've already made and the moves they can still potentially make, that would, at least if they're able to do those things before they're able to get Khalil Mack signed, that can show Khalil Mack like, hey, I do have intentions on fixing the problems that I had in previous seasons, so that way we can take that step forward and get that elusive win and get that last piece that you need in an already Hall of Fame career.
Well, and the thing is that, yes, the Chargers can offer that, but this says that he is not closing the door to potentially something he could think is a more convincing chance to win a playoff game, a more sure thing, because as good as the Chargers have been, the one thing they can't sell you on the last 2 years is that not that they're not going to make the playoffs, but that they're not going to win once they get there. So you are competing with the vision that other teams are going to be bringing to Khalil Mack. Now, last year, he did hit unrestricted free agency. He did have a chance to test his market, so I don't think there's any reason to panic like you would with Odafe Oweh. But at the same time, I think the Odafe Oweh part makes it worse, because now you're more desperate to keep him, right? Maybe you're not getting as good of a deal, and these other teams are getting a chance to go put their offer on the table in front of him. So I do think he would be back much more convincingly than I do think that Odafe Oweh would be back at this point. But it's not for certain, but the Chargers obviously I think will make a very strong push, especially if they sense Odafe Oweh heading, somewhere else. But let's get to this one here quickly from Jackson, who says, buy or sell, most of the Chargers' concerns on the defensive side of the ball will be addressed in the draft, and free agency will be used to address the offense. David, are you buying or selling that?
I'm buying it. I've said all along, I feel like they're going to spend big money on fixing up the offensive line, not just starters, but I think they need to get a couple of guys to provide quality depth as well. We already know that they're in the market for a running back and for a tight end potentially in free agency. So I do feel like they're going to try to solve many of their offensive problems in free agency, maybe get guys that fit in Mike McDaniel's system that may be more on the short-term situation, because they don't know how long he might be sticking around. And then on the defensive side in the draft, I think there's just a couple of things that they would like to have, obviously all contingent on what happens with the edge situation.
Yeah, I think the nice thing as well for, incoming free agents potentially, the fact that the bar is very low on the offensive line. You can come in and look pretty good pretty quickly. But I think the scary part here is that Joe Ortiz hasn't been great at finding offensive free agents, right? Like most of the big hits they've had are on the defensive side outside of basically J.K. Dobbins. And I think a big part of that is because of those are the guys that Greg Roman wanted. Now you get Mike McDaniel evaluating guys to bring in, and it's a little bit different. But there is some risk into, trying to address everything in the offense. Now, that being said, I think you will have to have 3 guys in the interior signed by the time you get to the draft. What level of guys those are is obviously something that's up for debate. And then you draft, competition / depth in the draft. But yeah, spend premium resources on the defensive side. First round pick since 2019 on the defensive side. That I am definitely buying. But we still have more to get into, including if the Chargers hinted at Zion Johnson coming back. We're talking about that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to recognize just how much they carry at work, in relationships, in families, and all the unseen roles they step into every single day. It's easy to celebrate that strength, but it's also just as important to make space for their emotional well-being. And honestly, that goes for all of us. For me, the 3 most important people in my life are all women. My daughter, my wife, and my mom. But I do think about my mom and just how much she carries without always saying so. And you start realizing that when you're an adult, thinking, oh my God, I had no idea how much my parents were doing for me, and especially my mom specifically, but also now seeing her as a grandma and her stepping into that role as Grammy to my daughter has just been incredible with all the help that she's been able to give me. I don't know how I would have done it without her, so I'm definitely thinking about her this month. But with over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, and it works. Fill out a short questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and if it's not the right fit, switch at any time. Your emotional well-being matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. All right, let's get into some more buy or sells here, including some more kind of tidbits that are coming out around these franchise tag deadlines and maybe what comes next for these guys. This one having a little bit more to do with the Chargers social media team potentially leaking something. Let's get to this one here from Omar Aguilar, who says, buy or sell, Zion is coming back, as LAC official YouTube page posted an interview of him with his partner. If you haven't seen, Zion Johnson and Haley, I believe is her name, are on the Chargers YouTube channel doing a date night special there. And some have taken this to say, hey, he's about to be a free agent. The Chargers are posting this now. Maybe that's good news for him to come back. David, what do you think?
I think the actual opposite. I think right now he's under contract, and this is really the only time left that they will guarantee that this will stay relevant, because as soon as undrafted free agency hits and he can sign him for another team, any content that they did before that means absolutely nothing. So I think it means nothing. I think it has absolutely no indication one way or another whether or not this means he is coming back.
Agreed. And, one of the Chargers high-up social media people, Jason Levine, in response to this, actually responded to a Chargers fan's Twitter. I think it was Charlie, and he said, who was basically saying something along these lines of oh, hey, this is a good sign. Zion Johnson's doing this stuff for the Chargers YouTube channel. Probably means that he's coming back. Jason Levine responded to that and said, because we have sponsor obligations, we know the new league year is coming, and we have zero idea who will be on this team. It's nothing. Move on to something else. So that's from the horse's mouth. It doesn't mean he's going to be back, or is more likely to be back, or isn't coming back. But that YouTube video probably won't have a huge impact on it, right? But at the same time, I was in that Chargers, media room at one point, and they were asking me some questions that made me wonder if they had any idea what the Chargers were going to do in the upcoming draft when I talked with them. So you never know. But at the same time, I still think there is a decent chance he's back. Again, going to Oweh, right, and Khalil Mack, if their best offer's already been out there and he hasn't signed yet, he could definitely leave. This is more just about how much we know the Chargers think of Zion, especially the durability with how injured their offensive line has been. We know that, he's a there everyday guy. We know he's a Jim Harbaugh favorite. And we know that theoretically he's a great fit in what this new offense is going to be. Now, to me, it comes in a price range of where I like it or not. I don't think it's like a disaster no matter what. He was coming off playing some of his best football. But at the same time, I don't think you should overpay for someone hoping that he can get to another level that you haven't seen in his first 4 years. But let's get to this one here from Chris Saiz, who says, buy or sell, the Chargers should not overspend on center in the free agent market and trust Mike McDaniel's ability to develop offensive line play like he did in Miami. David, do the Chargers not have to go top dollar because they have someone like Mike McDaniel now?
No, absolutely not. This does not preclude them from shopping at the top of the market to fix a problem that's been chronic in nature for several years. And also, as much as we all love Mike McDaniel and are very excited to have him, there is absolutely no guarantee that he is going to be here past this one season. So you cannot depend on his ability to improve the offensive line, because that could be just a short-term fix. They need a long-term answer to this problem because it's been a problem for a long time. So they need to make it emphatic, and they need to make it somebody who is going to get the job done with less questions.
Well, not only could Mike McDaniel be gone, Butch Barry could be gone, right? Like, you could have a 1-year rental at offensive line coach because that's who he picked to, be that guy when he was in Miami, Mike McDaniel, as far as who he staffed that with, right? Yeah, I'm selling it in a big way just because, again, like, I think the key word there, to your point, is develop. What time is there, right? Like, from the draft to the start of the season, like, you develop over time, and that's the one thing that you don't know that you have with him. So I'm fine if they want to draft and develop guys, but they have to have vets for every one of those spots to at least, contend for those starting spots, to at least get a baseline level of pay. And also, if they have to spend top dollar for one of the top centers, I'm still okay with that, even with the track record, because you have to think that Mike McDaniel did that with those offensive linemen. Butch Barry did that with those offensive linemen over several seasons. It wasn't something that just happened overnight, and it wasn't something that just happened in one off season. So as far as developing them go, the Chargers already bit themselves there, right? Because they didn't have the pipeline of guys who could develop and potentially take these jobs, which is what got them into this situation to begin with. You have to sign them, and you also have to draft them. But let's get to this one from Darren Tassone, who says, buy or sell, the Chargers are going to double down on center by signing a top 5 center in free agency and drafting a top 5 center in the draft. So I would say I'm buying it if we're talking about them getting a top 5 center that's available. Like, there's only one top 5 center in the league that's available. That's Tyler Linderbaum, which is a much smaller chance. Could they get a top 5 center in free agency and also get a top 5 center in the draft? Yeah, I don't think that's crazy at all.
No, I don't think it is either. And I think that's something that they should be doing because of what you just talked about with that pipeline issue, that talent pipeline issue. We have not seen the Chargers draft, and that's really kind of been because they haven't been able to draft guys in the mid to later rounds to develop and actually keep around and get better to provide quality depth. So it kind of forces them to do that. They have to get guys to start for you, get much better improvements there, but they need guys to be able to provide support as well, because as we know, injuries are going to happen. It's not a question of if, it's when. So the better quality depth that you have, that you can amass, that you can, plug in and be able to weather the storm, the better your chances of being able to win football games over a very long, physical football season.
You're absolutely right. And I think the other thing about this is, if you're drafting a center with this center class specifically, if the value is at least somewhat comparable to what people actually think draft expert-wise about these centers, you could get a center in the 3rd or 4th round, or even 5th round potentially, that's a top 5 center in this draft. I mean, we've talked about it before. I think Dane Brugler has 2 centers in his top 100 players, which is basically the first 3 rounds of the draft. You have other guys, PFF, I think, has 1 or 2 in their top 75 players. So, like, they can get a top 5 center in this draft, but just because you do that doesn't mean that you don't need somebody that's in front of them to spell them while they, get... There's just too much pressure on this one season to leave it in the hands of a rookie alone. Like, because there's no can't miss prospect in this draft class that you get them at center and you say, this guy is going to start from week 1. He is the answer we've been looking for. It's just too risky, because in the 1 year potentially of Mike McDaniel, in a year, you have to come away with a playoff win. I'm not leaving that in the hands of a rookie, which is why I'd be willing to spend the money on a center and, hope that even if you have to go mid-market on the guards around them, or wait to draft a guard to play next to them high, you have someone that can stabilize the middle and elevate those around them. And I think that is absolutely the way I would go if I were them. The other way they could go is just by stealing another team's offensive lineman, which they could be doing with the Bills, who have two of the top offensive linemen available. So we're going to talk about the Chargers potentially getting some chemistry in free agency and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
David, we still have some more here from the everydayers we want to get to, and thank you to everyone who contributed to today's show by hitting us up at Locked On LAC on Twitter or at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, wherever you guys found a way to contribute to today's show. And we still have some really good buy or sells here to get into, and we have this one from Greg Williams, who says, buy or sell, adding built-in chemistry by acquiring teammates Connor McGovern and David Edwards is a better move than acquiring Tyler Linderbaum and David Edwards. David, are you following what Greg Williams is saying here? Do you agree with it?
I am definitely following what he is saying, but I am not agreeing with it. I want the best possible center that you can get on the market because great players are what is going to make the biggest difference, in my opinion. I'm not saying Connor McGovern is good. I'm not saying Mr. Edwards is not a quality player, because they are. They are good players, but I want the ultimate force multiplier, and to me, that is Tyler Linderbaum, and you could have him and get a guard on each side of him, and he's going to make those guys better. Not to mention you have two, hopefully, all-pro level tackles coming back and being who they are and who we hope they, can continue to be on each side of them. But it's so important to have that guy in the middle. We've seen it with Corey Linsley, how much of a difference maker that can make and how much he can elevate the talent around him. That's what I want again, and hopefully for the next 4 or 5 seasons for the Chargers.
Yeah, and I totally get the point here, and I agree with you. If I can have Tyler Linderbaum, obviously, unless it's, $25+ million, which some reports think it might be, which is crazy, at $7 million more than the highest paid center and best center in the league in Creed Humphrey. But I think the thing is as far as this goes, you might be getting a better bang for your buck in this situation, right? Where you're not having to pay top of the line money or record setting money to a position and still get 2 gigantic upgrades on the interior of your offensive line. That's possible. Those guys also have a chemistry there, which is great. Yeah, if you can give me those 2 guys right now, I'd sign the dotted line for sure, and I'd feel pretty good about where the Chargers are at, needing to only fill one of those spots. That being said, that only really works if Connor McGovern isn't getting center 2 money, right? Because I'd much rather pay Tyler Linderbaum or overpay Tyler Linderbaum and make him the highest paid center in the league than have the signing of Tyler Linderbaum bring Connor McGovern up to a spot in the stratosphere now with how much, the market is ballooned. And now I'm paying him more than Creed Humphrey, right? So give me the top guy. If you could have 2 guys that somehow have chemistry, yes, they're learning a new offense anyways. But yeah, in theory, sure, right? I'd take those guys right now. And then you have 2 guys from one of the best offensive lines in the NFL last year, and then you add them to 2 of the best tackles in the NFL, you're off to a ridiculously good start in making sure that Justin Herbert doesn't get hit 129 times in 2026. But let's get to this one here from Golden Bong 1. This is buy or sell. The Chargers changed the whole interior of the offensive line, adding Tyler Linderbaum and 2 different guards, with Mekhi Becton's eventual cut and Zion Johnson's contract looking a little bit too big for what the Chargers are willing to spend on him. David, you buying or selling?
I'm going to buy it. I think, honestly, with what the contract numbers are going to look like, or what we've heard, and what we've heard about what the league or how the league views Zion Johnson as one of the top guards available, I think for him, just like Odafe Oweh, it would be kind of stupid if he did not at least get to free agency and see who is going to pay him an exorbitant amount of money to go play for them. I mean, it just seems like that's the most, effective thing for him to do for his market, for his family specifically. So with that being said, I do feel like, and also it's not the worst thing in the world either. I've said it multiple times. Like he's been good. He's been I would say he's been average. He's been an average guard in this league. There are improvements to be had there. There are players that can come in and provide better quality play, and maybe even if it is just for the short term, but that's not a bad thing to say that they're going to have an all new interior of the offensive line, because it was one of the worst interiors in the history of football last year.
Yeah, and it's tough to do, right? We saw the Bears do it, at least for one season, and now they need another new center after Drew Dahlman's surprise retirement, which isn't great, obviously, for the Chargers, who are also in need of the center. That's why I have to at least sell the part of this that has them just adding Tyler Linderbaum. Like, I wish I could just be convinced the Chargers will land them, because I know there's several teams who think they're going to be the one that lands him. It's great to know that the Ravens aren't re-signing him, so they have at least a chance at him at this point, is what it seems like. That's all good news. But you know who else needs a center? Baltimore. You know who else needs a center? Buffalo now, because Connor McGovern was voided. The Panthers, because Cade Mays might be leaving. The Bears, because Drew Dahlman retired. The Raiders don't have a center. The Commanders cut Tyler Biadasz. That's only name a few. Like, the center, for as many centers might be out there, and, there's at least probably 6 or 7 guys that I can tell you without a doubt would be improvements over what Bradley Bozeman gave you. There's a lot of teams that need a center. And some teams are high on the draft, and some teams are going to be lower on the draft. But it's hard to know, especially if Joe Ortiz hesitates, how far down on that list of centers they're going to have to go, while other guys decide to go elsewhere. So I think 3 new guys, very much a possibility. I'm not totally convinced at this point that they're going to sign Tyler Linderbaum. I'm just hoping that Joe Ortiz can change his ways a little bit and go after a big ticket item and find the discounts around that elsewhere. Fill the rest of the team out with what you've been able to do so well, which is finding these bargain contracts and guys who are going to outplay them. But you're probably going to have to spend some money if you really want to fix what has been a very long problem for this Chargers. And to your point, I'd rather pay Tyler Linderbaum $22.5 million than pay Zion Johnson $20 million, right? So if that's where the money has to get allocated, I'm totally good with it. Let's get to one more here from Brandon Lee Mills, who says, buy or sell, since Big Mike McD will be taking over. We'll be doing a lot more trick plays, even though we may not 100% have the speed weapons to do so. David, are we seeing more trick plays with Mike McDaniel this year?
Yes, I think we are going to see more trick plays from Mike McDaniel, and it's for a couple of different reasons. One, he's a much better play caller, and 2, they're going to have a lot better protection. I firmly believe they're going to put the resources in this year that they have to improve the blocking, and that's important because to do trick plays, you have to have time to be able to allow them to develop and then hit them effectively. Obviously, you want to lull your opponent to sleep and try to hit them when they're not expecting it. But most of the time, a trick play requires that extra second, and you need to have quality blocking to be able to execute it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of all the trick plays under Greg Roman. The only one I can really think of off the top of my head is Keenan Allen catching it and trying to throw it 25 yards diagonally behind them and them saying, yeah, that is what we meant to do. Yeah, I think under Greg Roman and several other Chargers offensive coordinators of years past, it was like anytime you would see a trick play, you're like, oh, no, here we go. This is going to be a disaster.
Train wreck. Yeah.
Way too much. They're doing double reverses and they just don't have time to do it. I do think we'll see more trick plays. Now, that doesn't mean, they're all going to be double or triple passes or lateral plays and stuff like that. But I think in general, you're going to just see a lot more kind of misdirection, a lot more deceit in this Chargers offense to get opposing defenses tricked, right? Even if it's not the Philly special or whatever the trick play is of the day. Now, I also think Mike McDaniel is more aggressive than Greg Roman was too. So I think that helps. But I think the big thing here is just You know what's better than trick plays? Not needing trick plays to beat the defenses that you're going up against. And I think that is what I'm most excited about with Mike McDaniel for sure. But does he need more speed? That is a question, right? Because you're saying he doesn't have 100% of the speed weapons to do so. Well, if he wants speed, speed is available because we just had like the fastest NFL combine of all time with guys just blowing historic times away. And that is what the bonus show is going to be about later. So make sure you guys are back here for that as we get into some of the fastest running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends in this draft class coming up. And also how much the Chargers actually need speed, or do they actually have a sneaky amount of speed that's already on the roster? We're going to get into all of that. But I do just want to thank all the everydayers, as always, for making us your first listen and being here to contribute for shows like this that we couldn't do without you when we do these buy or sell shows that we love. And to make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show or contributing to the show everywhere that we are on social media at Locked On OAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. You can also call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924 and get your 30-second Chargers buy or sell in there. But if you love the show and you want a different version of it that doesn't have any ads in the audio podcast version, you can do that now in the Locked On Everydayer Club. And now free agency is here, and so are we. You can get 1 month free of the Everydayer Code with Club Free Agency, no spaces, all caps, now through March 15th. Go to ad free and keep this conversation going on Discord. You can find it in the show notes, or you can also join the club at Locked On Podcast, LockedOnChargers.supercast.com. So make sure you guys check that out if you want an ad-free audio version of the podcast. But make sure you're here for the bonus show later when we talk about how many speedsters were at the NFL Scouting Combine. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.